Dun, 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 dun.
Ooh.
It's not good.
What? Keep it going, man.
Bum, 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 bum.
We're going to put all this in. Ooh, yeah. I bet you're doing that because we have a special guest this week.
Mm-hmm. Yes, we do. Why don't you tell them who it is?
I believe we got Bo Eason, NFL pro, to stage no plan B.
No plan B.
No plan B, just declaration to domination.
Are you ready?
Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Let's do it.
Fire.
Buckle up. It's the Insurance Dudes Podcast.
Hey, man.
Hey, Bo.
You got, hey, I like that. I like that behind you. That looks cool.
Not that.
This?
No, that whatever that was, the last shot. The other shot.
Here?
No, yeah, this one. Let me see. Not that one. It's yeah, that one.
Jason or
That one, Pee Wee Herman on it.
Yeah.
Yes. Right up there.
That looks like a vision board or something.
It was. It's my eight-year-old vision board. Recreated.
Is that Michael Jackson above your head?
Yes.
I like that.
And Alf. He's got Alf.
You got Alf? All right. So which one's Craig and which one's Jason? Craig?
I'm Craig right here with
Okay, got it.
the dudes.
I'm Jason.
All right, Jason, how are you?
Good, man. How you doing?
I'm doing good. Thank you. We're just getting set up. Are we set up, Todd?
Yeah, you're set up. How's he sound and look?
Do I sound okay and everything?
Sound great. Yeah. Sound great.
Okay.
Shot.
We're rolling. We roll right when we walk in. That's why we do the thing where we try to surprise you. But
That's great.
today.
That's great. Might be in a bathrobe or something, right?
That's what we should do.
That's a great idea.
Yeah.
Bathrobes. Let's wear bathrobes next week.
Yeah. Good idea. So you guys, what's your audience? What are they? Insurance guys?
Yeah, we mostly insurance people. We've picked up marketers, digital marketing, some loan officers. You know, like kind of the ancillary businesses that I guess spiderweb off of the insurance industry. And the interesting thing is, I mean, really, insurance touches everybody because everybody has to have it.
Yeah.
You know? And that's why
And
we
insurance
become
is boring.
Yeah.
So that's why we do this.
So
Then it gets us
boring.
actually doing insurance.
You guys are awfully hip for insurance guys.
Yeah, you know, gotta be these days. We're trying to get millennials as clients.
That's funny.
I think we need to grow beards so we can fit in with the hipster.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah. Well, it's awesome to have you on, Bo. I know I chased you for a while and was able to get you on, and you have this book that is awesome. I've been reading and listening to it. So appreciate that they sent that out. That's awesome. But it's great, man. It's great. And you have a fascinating story.
Thank you.
Yeah. Why don't you, you go back to when you're a kid and your dad talking to you in the book, which is, why you're where you are. And I think, there's so much to go over and I'm just like but why don't we just start with, so people who don't know who you are,
Yeah.
a little of your background, because it's really interesting, from
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny. It's just like when I was 9 years old, I drew up this plan and this dream that I had to be the best safety in the world, which is a position in football for those of you who don't know. And, the whole way following that plan since I was 9, it was a 20-year plan. So I was off course most of the time. Like no college recruited me. I walked on at a Division II school that gave no scholarships. But just like the plan said, and just like the declaration that I was following, I ended up being one of the top safeties in the world. In 1984, I got drafted to the Houston Oilers, played there for 4 years. I got traded to the San Francisco 49ers. And then after that finished, after I had 7 knee surgeries, I just did the same exact thing that I did in football. I made up a new plan and a new dream. And this next dream was 180 degrees the opposite direction of playing football, right? So it was, I wanted to be the best stage performer of my time. And here's the problem, guys. I'd never been on stage. So I was like 27, 28 years old, and I had never been on a stage. Yet I moved to New York City because I knew they had a bunch of stages there. And I started learning and training to be the best on stage. And I ended up getting together with Al Pacino, who was the best stage performer at that time. That was about 1990. And so I met with him, and he told me exactly what to do for the next 15 years, which was really similar, funny enough, really similar to what it took to be the best safety. The same principles applied to what it took to be the best playwright and stage performer. It just took a lot of miles and a lot of years and training your ass off. And I did that. And 15 years later, I opened a play in New York that I wrote that I was the only guy in. And the New York Times named that the most powerful play of the decade. And that's that's been my life ever since. That's what I've been doing is making these declarations with my life, and I always include the words "the best." And my latest thing, which is probably how you guys found me, which is this book, which is called "There's No Plan B for Your A Game: How to Be the Best in the World at What You Do." I actually put these principles into place so that the rest of the world would know, if they wanted to be the best in the world at something, what principles to follow. And that's why we're here today. So that's kind of been my whole life, has been obsessed with that term called the best, because my dad woke me and my brothers and my sisters up every morning by telling us we were the best. So that's kind of the genesis of where everything came from.
It's remarkable, because anybody that tries to step out on a limb, there's the fear. Number one, I can't imagine going from football to being on stage and the fear of that, but just everybody, humans is in general, there's the fear, and then there's everybody who should be supporting them and telling them in the way that your dad told you, tell you how you can't succeed. Touch on that in the book. It's like, oh, well, you can't do that. You'll never do that. I even remember, when my daughter was in gymnastics and she was on pace to be level 10, she ended up getting injured, but she would have been, in college competing. But there was always that, people would go, well, that's not, it's very, very unlikely that'll happen. It's like they're trying to prep you for failure, when if you don't have the mindset that you're going to be successful, you can't be, right?
It's over before you ever start.
Right.
If your mind is mediocre, if you're thinking that, wow, I don't have the right genes for this, or I wasn't born in the right family, or I don't have a work ethic, you're dead in the water. You might as well not even start. So the first place you've got to start is you got to get everything right in here, and you got to remember who you are. And who us human beings are is we're already born, number one, we're already born the best. And people sometimes argue with me with that. And I go, look, I'm not going to argue with you that you were born to be the best. All you have to do is argue with Mother Nature, right? You take your argument to her, because she's undefeated. And she's the one, right? You can't beat her. Yet she's the one who says that you're the best in the world, because the day that you and I were conceived, there was 300 million sperm delivered on that day. And so the odds of you and me being born was 300 million to 1 at least, yet you and me won the first race we ever entered. And now we come into the earth, and now we're supposed to be mediocre? How could this be? That's flying directly in the face of your own primitive instincts, your own ethos, if you're going to be mediocre. So I always say, look, some people come to me and they go, Bo, it's really hard to be the best. And I say, yeah, but try being mediocre. That's really hard because it's just not in our DNA. It's not how we're made.
Yeah. And your story with football in high school, like you came home, you're like, hey, Dad, they said I'm the smallest guy. I'm Mr. Pee Wee here. And then he told you the story of the runt.
Yeah.
Right. Which I think is, that's awesome. Could you just touch on that? I know you don't want to give away everything in the book, but.
Yeah, no, it's a big part of the book, and you'll read it in more detail when you get it. But the story he's talking about is, I got, the first day of high school football. I'd never played tackle football in my life, but I had this dream of being the best. In like 8 years after that, I had to be the best safety. So I weigh in my freshman year. I was 5 feet tall, 98 pounds standing on the scale. So the coach, looks at me, shakes his head, and, tells me I'm too small. So after practice, that was the first day of practice. After that practice, I walk out and my dad picks me up in his truck and I'm in tears. And he's like, what's happening? And I go, they weighed and measured us for the game program today, my first day of tackle football, and the coach says I'm too small. And without skipping a beat, my dad said, is it all right if I say some cuss words on this podcast?
Yeah.
Okay. So, because I just want to tell you exactly what my dad said. My dad said, did they measure your heart, goddammit? And I remember saying to my dad, my school doesn't have one of those heart measuring things. And my dad says, no. He tells me a story because my dad's a cowboy, right? So he's on a cattle. We live on a cattle ranch and sheep and cattle on the ranch. And my dad told me this story of how we choose the dog that's going to herd those cattle. So he says, do you know how we herd the cattle? Do you know the dog that we choose? I said, no. He said, we choose when the puppies are born, we choose the smallest puppy, the runt of the litter. And we take that little puppy and we tie a little piece of yarn around its neck, the smallest puppy. And we tie a little piece of yarn around its neck, and then we return it to its bigger brothers and sisters and let it grow up for 12 weeks with the brothers and sisters who are all bigger, smarter, and faster. So the runt, during those 12 weeks, just to survive, has to be faster, stronger, smarter than all the rest of its bigger brothers and sisters. And so my dad told me we give away all of those puppies to other people. We give them all away, except the runt. We keep the runt, and the runt becomes the new herd dog, the new ranch dog on the ranch, because it has grown up against all odds and fought harder and faster, and the runt has the biggest heart. And so us ranchers bet on the runt every time, goddammit. The survival of our ranch is dependent on the runt of the litter. So once he told me that story, I knew my place. I knew I was the youngest. I was the youngest of 6 kids. I knew I was the smallest. So I knew I had to bust my ass harder than everybody else. And I knew then that my heart was bigger than the rest of them to survive. And so I made that story my life. And I've lived out that story. And now I'm 58 years old. I still live that story. Even though I'm 6'2", 190 pounds now, I still think I'm the runt, right? Even when I was in the NFL, I still told that story. I still lived as if I was the runt. So that's the reason I put all these lessons inside the book so that people can follow those principles.
You look like you're 42, man. I'm 37, maybe. I mean, dang.
Thank you. Yeah, appreciate it. Yeah, I married a girl who was 14 years younger than me, my wife, Dawn. So that really helped, right? And I was kind of a late bloomer. So I had kids when I was old. I had kids in my 40s. So now my kids are 15, 12, and 10. So they're keeping me young. I'm trying to stay hip and young.
That's awesome. Hey, you talk a lot about course correction. And I think that's a huge, I mean, for people that maybe didn't grow up in that environment of that mindset that you have, talk about course correction, what it means to you.
Yeah, it's been a huge thing throughout my whole life. Whenever you're attempting to be world class at something, and it doesn't matter what, whether that's ping pong or ballet or voice, singing, or being the best safety, it's all the same. The principles are exactly the same for all of those disciplines. The one thing that is true when you choose what you want to be the best at is now you're going to be off course on the way to being world class 99% of the time. Isn't that crazy to think of? I'd like everybody to think of this. Like whoever's listening and watching this podcast today, think of what your dream to be the best in the world at. What would that be? And now think of you're going to be off course for most of the time. In fact, 99% of the time on your way to being the best in the world at this thing, you're going to be off course. That's appropriate. That's how it goes when you're attempting to be the best. Think of yourself or your dream or declaration. Think of it like this. Say you and I charter a jet that goes from Los Angeles to Maui, right? So that's a 5-hour flight over the Pacific Ocean to Maui. So when the pilots get up in the air, what they do is they start eating their lunch and they start visiting with passengers. What they do is they put the jet on automatic pilot. And so now we know this jet is going to land in Maui in the next 5 hours, but it's going to be off course 99% of the time, and it's going to land in the exact place that it's supposed to land at in 5 hours. All that self-righting mechanism, that automatic pilot is only righting the ship. It's off course 99% of the time, but the automatic pilot puts it on the very spot it's supposed to land at. Same is true for your dreams. I was off course 99% of the time for 20 years until I was drafted, one of the top safeties, right? But the whole time, you guys, you got to remember this. You're going to be off course. Don't be ashamed of yourself when you get off course. Your job is to right the ship, not to beat yourself up for being off course. That's the name of the game. Most people don't like the feeling of being off course, so they quit their own dreams before they ever have a shot to have them come true. So if you can deal with being off course, you're going to end up world class. You're going to end up the very top of the mountain. But on the journey, it ain't pretty, right? You're off course most of the time.
Yeah, humans will just catastrophize everything, right? Well, this is, I failed, it's over, right? And that's their excuse to get out of it and not do the work. But really, it's doing those 10,000, like Bruce Lee, doing the 10,000 punches, the few punches 10,000 times to get to that end result.
That's exactly right. And you know where you'll really see this? If you have kids or you have grandkids, think of them. Remember when you taught them to brush their teeth? Or do you remember learning to brush your own teeth? You were off course like every day because you did not want to brush your teeth. That's exactly right. You're off course, and I remember sprinting from my parents with my toothbrush in hand until they caught me and forced me to brush my teeth. But here we are, 58 years later, I actually brush my teeth every day now. You know, right. What a concept. But back then, you just sucked at it.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's true. So, and what about making this declaration? You talk about that.
Yeah.
How's that so powerful?
Yeah. Instead of goals, you know, I'm not a big goal guy just because goals, that word doesn't turn me on. It makes me think of like a soccer match or a hockey game where people score goals. It's not enough for the long run. So I like the word declaration for the long run. And the reason I love that word is because, and I think you will too, there's a whole section in the book on declaration that makes it really clear to you, but I'll break down what I mean by it. So we all know here in America the Declaration of Independence, which was written 250 years ago, you guys. Think about that. 250 years ago, our forefathers, our founding fathers, wrote that declaration. Now, you and me didn't have anything to do with that, but yet you and me bring that document to life every day here in America by the way we live, by the way we speak, by the way we walk freely through our country. We express our freedom every day for 250 years. It's a declaration. I want you to think of your declaration, because your declaration you're going to treat no different than you do the Declaration of Independence. You're going to bring that declaration to life minute by minute, day by day for the rest of your life. And so that's why my first declaration was to be the best safety in the world. Now, it took me years to achieve that, but I was expressing best safety in the world. I was being the best safety in the world on day one, when I was only 9. I started to act like them. I started to talk like them. I started to train like the best safeties in the world, even though my body had not caught up to me. It took many, many years, right? Yours is going to be the same. So say you want to be the best at sales of insurance, or you want to be the best violin player in the world. There's no difference between those two declarations. You start to live like the best violinist in the world. You start to live like the best salesperson of insurance in the world. You start to say the things they say. You start to drive the cars they drive. You start to treat your spouse like they treat their spouse. You start to be this thing, and you live into your declaration. Therefore, 20 years passes, and you are guaranteed to be the very, very top. Now, you guys, a lot of people go, well, Bo, I don't have 20 years. Bo, I can't stick to a plan for 20 years. That's not true, for one. And for two, here's my question. Where are you going in the next 20 years? Where are you going to be? I'm going to be 78. I'm going to be damn 80-year-old dude, right? Those years are coming whether I want them to or not, right? And they're coming for you. So if you're 40 today, you're going to be 60. It's coming. Here's the question. Are we going to, for the next 20 years, do what everybody else does, which is whine and complain and play the victim card like I'm getting old, I'm getting fat, I can't move anymore, I'm just lazy, I'm old? Is that what you're going to do? No, we're not going to do that. We're going to master a thing, which is called your declaration. You're going to master something. And here's the thing. Science, this isn't Bo saying this. This is science. Science has proved that if you and me today declare that we want to be something so crazy like this, you and me want to be the best, the virtuoso violin player in the world. Do you know that's possible in 20 years? Do you know it's possible for us to be the greatest piano player in the world in 20 years? Do you know that it's possible for you and me to reach perfect pitch in our voice? Something that they thought only Beethoven had or Mariah Carey had. That is not true. Science has proved over and over again for the last 35 years that that is accessible to you and me. You and me are going to be here for 20 years. What are we going to master? What are we going to declare that we're going to be the best in the world at? That's all you have to think about.
So awesome. The declaration and that mindset, getting yourself to truly believe you can do that is one step. And then there's also that power of proximity, right? Something that of being around the right people, and something that you pointed out in the book that I thought was just fascinating. You broke down the numbers. You said, if, of all the people in high school, there's a certain percentage that make it to college football. And then of that, there's a certain percentage that make it to pro football. And it's like, what was it, 1/10%? It was some very infinitesimal number. But your high school, a tiny little town in the middle of nowhere, and how many of the guys on your team that won ended up in the pros?
Yeah, crazy statistics, right? So you and me, anytime you hear a really bad statistic from the news or from your boss or from your spouse, like the odds of you, like you were talking about your daughter in gymnastics. Well, the odds of that happening are nearly impossible. That's true. But you got to learn, all of you today have to learn to fall in love with really bad odds. So here's the odds. Here's the odds right here. If you're a high school football player, the odds of you playing pro football is 0.03%. That's the odds of you playing in the NFL. So those are the worst odds I ever heard, right? And you know what I do when I hear those odds, you guys? I start slobbering. I start getting giddy and excited. Do you know why? I know that everyone else is going to quit based on those odds, which gives me zero competition. I'm going to be one of those 0.03%ers because everybody else is going to quit because they hate the odds. Now listen.
Wow, that's awesome.
So check this out, you guys. So I went to a high school that's never had a pro athlete. It's been around 100 years. There's never been a pro athlete before I got there. There's never been a pro athlete since I left. So 100 years, not one. So I show up, the little, small, not particularly good athlete, but I have a dream and I have a declaration, okay? So I had 27 farm boys on my high school football team. 27 boys. Never a pro athlete before I got there, never since I left. How many, if you just had to venture a guess based on the statistics I just gave you, which is 0.03% of all high school players, are going to make it to the pros? How many of those 27 do you think made it, given those statistics? Like zero, like less than zero, But here's the truth of the matter, guys. 4 dudes out of 27 went all the way to the NFL, 25 years of experience, of playing experience in the NFL. 2 Super Bowls, you guys, 2 Super Bowls. That's statistical impossibility. It cannot happen, and yet it happened, and it continues to happen. Why? Because one kid out of the 27 had a dream and a declaration. And that's all that has to happen. that proximity that we're talking about, the odds against you are huge. It doesn't matter. You're going to take people with you. Right now, you guys, my son is 12 years old. When he was 6, he came up with a declaration that said, it might as well have said this: I'm going to be the first man to walk on Pluto. That might as well have been what he said, because this is what he said. And he drew it up with a picture. We still have it. He's going to be the first guy to play in the NBA and the NFL. So that's never been, that no one's ever done that. So he might as well live on Pluto. Those are the odds of this happening to my son. Yet here's the deal, guys. That's when he was 6. He's now 12. I can tell you right now that shit is happening. That's going to happen. And it's going to happen. You and me are going to watch it happen, since I told you it today. We're going to watch it happen. And on that day that he's drafted to both leagues, ESPN is going to say stupid things like this. Oh, he's lucky. Oh, Axel Eason was born with good genes.
Right.
Oh, they're going to make all these excuses, and they're going to devalue all the work that this kid has put in for all these years, 20 years. They're going to devalue the proms that he missed and the birthday parties that he didn't get to attend. They're going to devalue all the 5 a.m. trainings that this kid has done since he was 6, aren't they? And you and me are going to know different, because we have a declaration, and we follow our declaration against whatever odds there are, and we reach the top because we're one of the few that's not afraid of struggle, that's not afraid of getting our ass kicked now and again, that's not afraid of being off course 99% of the time, right? So if you make this declaration, if you follow the principles of there's no plan B for your A game, not only are you going to be world class in 20 years, you're going to take people with you on the journey, just like my buddies from high school. They got to play in the NFL because one kid had a dream, had a declaration. They're going to go with you to the top. There's nothing cooler than that. So when people say to you, oh, don't try to be the best, because that's very selfish and conceited. No, it's not. You're doing everybody in your orbit a huge service, a huge favor, because if they so choose, they get to go with you.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's just so powerful. And then from the declaration, you've created the 60-day challenge.
Mm-hmm. 66-day challenge.
Yeah. Oops. Yeah.
Yeah. 66 days. There's science. This is brand new science out of the University of London. Remember how they used to say, well, to change a habit, it takes 21 days, and then they changed it to 30. Well, this new science out of London says this about being world class, says this about changing a bad habit, turning it into a good one. If you do something for 66 days in a row, it's actually harder to not do that new thing you've been doing for 66 days than it is to do it. So let's give an example of trying to stop eating sugar. So if we cut sugar out of our diet for 66 days, which this is one that we did for my son. So I think he was 7 or 8. We had to take sugar out of his diet, right? Because if we had sugar in a 7-year-old's diet for the rest of his life, he'll never be able to play in the NBA and in the NFL at the age of 21 or 22 or whatever age, right? We knew that would at least make it very difficult for him. So we took 66 days, we broke down the 20 years into 66-day increments, and the first one was, let's get rid of sugar. And so he had to quit eating sugar for 66 days. So imagine that for a kid, Now, obviously, just like we talked about before, he fell off the horse again and again and again. But he recommitted every morning for 66 days to not eat sugar. Some days he was successful, some days not. But here's the science, you guys. It's harder now for after those 66 days. Now, he was 7, 8 years old when he did it. Now he's 12. It's very rare that he'll put a cookie into his mouth. Only because the science says if you do something for 66 days, it's hard to break that habit. It's almost hard for him to eat sugar. Isn't that weird? So think about that for yourself. Being that we're going to make this declaration for 20 years, right? How are we going to break this sucker up into bite-sized pieces so we can keep the commitment? We do that with the University of London science, which says 66 days to acquire a new great habit. So imagine if you're, a salesperson, or imagine if you're a piano player. You can imagine what those first 66 days would look like. Like you'd have to put in some real training to change some habits, like either making cold calls, like 20 cold calls a day for 66 days, or playing the piano for 4 hours a day with the greatest piano teacher of all time. If you're a salesperson, I would get this greatest salesperson, whoever that is, to train me. I would pay them to teach me, and I would train with them and read their stuff and follow what they did for 66 days. As soon as those 66 days are up, guys, you don't ever have to think about it again for the next 19 years because it's over. You're not putting, it's already, your brain is already taken over, right? That's the science, and we break that 66-day thing down. And you know what's cool too, you guys? Inside the book, I don't know if you saw this, but inside the book, we actually have these action steps that you follow. And some of those action steps will take you to where you can download examples of these 66 days. Yeah, there's a great shot of the book right there. Inside there, we have the 66 days what we've done, what my family has done as examples that you can download and get the calendar, the 66-day calendar, and use it for yourself or for your kids, however you're going to do it.
So awesome.
That's incredible. And what's even more incredible, Bo, is the fact that you got your 7-year-old to commit to not eating sugar.
Yeah, I know, right? It's so funny. People always ask me, they go, how do you do that? I go, it's got to come inside of their dream. So if they want to be the best firefighter in the world or whatever they choose, it doesn't matter. Because you guys, there's no such thing as choosing the wrong declaration either. Because if you choose the wrong declaration, it will soon reveal to you the right declaration. So there's no such thing as choosing wrongly, choosing the bad one. Your kids will follow their own dreams. They'll follow, if they want to be the best firefighter, that sugar or being physically fit or whatever they want to be, you just make that a 66-day thing. They love it. You know why? Because they get to cross off those 66 days and you're being a partner with them through it. It's a really great way to teach them. No different than you taught them to brush their teeth. It's kind of the same kind of process.
Yeah.
Those 66 days are the front end, right? That's establishing the habits. How about putting it out into the future? And then you talk about working backwards, working in reverse back to today.
Yeah.
Why is that important, and how do they accomplish that?
Because the people who succeed at being world class, being the best, like every Olympic gold medalist is accurate of what we're talking about right now. What they all have in common is this. And I once saw a doctor speaking on stage. I spoke on stage, then he spoke. He's amazing. And he said the most successful people, world class at whatever discipline, have one very cool thing in common. And it's the intimacy they have with their future selves. So you have to put yourself intimately and know yourself intimately 20 years into the future. You have to be able to see what age you are. You have to see what your body's going to look like. You got to see who you're married to, what your relationship with your kids is like in 20 years. What does your house look like? What does your car look like? The people who have the best imagination of bringing those 20 years forth and bringing it to today's world, those are the people who always make those things a reality. So think about whatever you've declared you want to be the best at. So let's take the example of me trying to be the best safety. So I'm a little kid, and now I'm studying safeties and looking at them in magazines and imagining who they're married to, how big they are, what car do they drive, what do they say, how do they train, who trains them, what do they do on their day off? And I bring that reality to me as a 9-year-old. So Bo is now being the best safety in the world at the age of 9. Now, his body is too small and he's too slow, but his body will catch up because of the intimacy of my future. And the imagination I use of my future, I bring it forth. So then all these years pass, and guess what happens, guys? The very photographs of the guys that I imagined tackling, that I would put up in my locker, that I would put up on my wall in high school and in junior high, those very guys like Walter Payton, I put them up and looked at them and said, I'm going to tackle Walter Payton one day. Sure enough, 1986, the Bears just won the Super Bowl. 8 years after I put him in my locker, now I'm tackling the very guy I've been staring at for 8 years, Walter Payton. I had an intimacy with Walter Payton's picture, which came to life 8 years later and got to tackle, one of my heroes. And I was so shocked that I got him on the ground that I just laid on top of him. And when you lay on top of one of the greatest running backs of all time, they don't like it. And so as I got off him slowly, he kicked me. So you have to bring your future to the current day. The intimacy, you understand? You have to have an intimacy with your future self. And if you can have that, then you get to have what that future guy or girl has. That's what you got to go forth. You got to live that life and bring it back to you. That's how gold medalists do it. If you notice, when you're watching the Olympics, every time you see an Olympic gold medalist, what's the story of them? Every time you're watching it on NBC, and they go back to when they were kids, and the kid drew a picture. Michael Phelps, for example, drew a picture of himself when he's a little kid with a gold medal hanging around his neck, with his Speedo on, standing on top of that box, and with another guy standing below him and another guy with the bronze below him. They knew their future. They created their future, had intimacy with it, and then brought it forth. And now that dude's got 20 gold medals hanging around his neck. That's how you do it. You got to go forth and already put yourself at being the best, and then bring it back to the current day.
I love that. Talk about the title. There's no plan B.
Yeah.
Talk about having no plan B. What does that What does that mean to you?
I love that title, and the title comes from my mom, who's 89 and still alive, and she's funnier than heck. She's in the book. So they interviewed her because, the odds of having two sons and both those sons play in the NFL, the odds against that are like no odds, right? There's like no odds, right? It's really bad. So we interviewed her for the book. It was really cool. What were we talking about? Oh, we were talking about, what was the question again?
No plan B.
Oh, yeah, plan B. Oh, so when we were growing up, my mom's friends would come over to our house, and they would try to talk my mom and my dad out of me and my brother's dreams of playing in the NFL. They would go, there's never been a pro athlete ever around here. We don't know any. The odds of that are really bad. So what we think would be best for your boys is that you should have a plan B for them. And this is how we got the title. My mom would not say a word to those people, but she would pick them up out of their chair, usher them to the front door, and throw them out into the porch and close the door, never to let these people in the house again. And I saw her do that. And I said to myself, I think that plan B is a bad idea. Because I certainly don't want to get thrown outside and never to enter the house again. So she was the one somehow who knew that if you have a plan B, then you're going to make that plan B come true. But it gets rid of plan A. So unless you want to be the best at plan B, then only have a plan B. So she taught me no plan B. And that's where we are,
What did she go through to be able to have that kind of clarity? How did she know how powerful that was?
That's the one thing, being that I grew up as a young guy, grew up around animals, right? So it's a ranch, there's a lot of cattle and there's sheep, and when you grow up around animals, you get this cycle of life and death because you have to slaughter the cattle to eat, you know what I mean? So you watch the little cow grow up, and now it's a big 1,000-pound steer, and next thing you know, you're eating that steer. That's real life. My kids don't know where steak comes from. They don't know. They just think it came from the grocery store or whatever. But I know where it came from.
Seen it.
Because I petted that thing one day, So it's reality. So my mom and dad, that was how you grow up when you're on a ranch, life and death. And it's just part of it. So I think this whole plan B, once you're talking about life and death, there's really no plan B. And if you think about this, you guys, this plan B. So remember when John F. Kennedy in the 60s was up giving a speech, and he said, we're going to put a man on the moon and we're going to return him safely to Earth by the end of the decade. Now, when he said that, that was completely impossible, right? There was no way in hell that was going to happen. And yet here's what happened, guys. We not only put a man on the moon and returned him safely to Earth by the end of the decade, but John F. Kennedy had died. He was assassinated. He didn't even see that declaration come into fruition. He didn't see it come true. But he made such a strong declaration that the country got behind the declaration and actually fought together to make that declaration come true. And the dude who said it was not even alive. Now, what if that speech, he said this, you guys? What if JFK said these words? Okay, America, we're going to put a man on the moon and we're going to return him safely to Earth by the end of the decade. And if that doesn't work out, if we just get a man in space, that'll be fine.
Then they're going to just get a man in space.
We would have done plan B, right? That's all because that's what human beings do. We do whatever's easiest.
It all connects. I mean, your mom really hit the nail on the head, because that plan B becomes infectious, right? It permeates the situation. And when we already know that 99% of the time you're off course, then you settle, right? It's like, well, shit, I can't do it. I'm over here.
Yep.
You know, we made it to space. Good enough, right?
Yep.
I mean,
Yep.
so for people to constantly get back in that, away from that failure and push that stuff out, what are the things they should do? Like, how do you push that out? What are some?
Well, you just have to understand, and I lay this out in the book really well. You have to understand what you just made a sacred promise. You just made a declaration. That declaration supersedes all else, right? That's the thing you're loyal to. So you have to know who you are. For one, you have to know that you have the DNA to be number one. You've already proven that by being born, right? 300 million to 1 odds of you being born, yet you were the champion, right? So you have to know who you are in that way. You also have to start getting comfortable with the idea of struggle, the idea of being off course, the idea of failure. That our world has no muscle for failure. We have no muscle for struggle. If you're going to end up being world class, if you're going to win the gold medal in the balance beam, guess what? You have to fail on the balance beam more than everyone else in the world. You have to fall off the balance beam more than every other human being on the planet. That's what you signed up for. You said you wanted to win the gold medal in the Olympics on the balance beam. You have just signed up for endless struggle. That beam is 4 inches wide. You're falling off that sucker all day, every day for 20 years until you don't. And if you're fortunate enough to do that during competition, you get the gold medal. Your life, my life, no different than that. Here's the wimpy part of us humans. We're no good at struggle. We suck at it. We have no muscle to deal with struggle. But that's the only way to get better, is to put yourself in an uncomfortable place, which is beyond your current capacity, where you have to struggle. And in that struggle, your body and your brain adapt to the new demanding situation, and all of a sudden, you're standing on top of the gold medal stand. We human beings are the best at one thing. We're the best at adaptation of demanding situations, which is why you and me are on this planet today, and the dinosaurs are not on this planet today. They're bigger than us, they're fiercer than us, they're faster than us, they're everything more than us, except they don't adapt as quick as human beings do. We're the fastest at adaptation. So think about that. Let's think about that for a second. If we are indeed the fastest at adaptation, which we are, then we have to put ourselves beyond our current capacity in an uncomfortable place. That's called struggle. We then adapt to the new demanding situations and we improve. Well, what's the name of the game in being the best? You must improve day in and day out. So for kids, when your kids go through this, they're in tears. They hate struggle, right? Because they've been taught that they should be perfect and they should never struggle. But that's not true. If you're interested in winning a gold medal, guess what? You're falling off the balance beam more than little Judy. Every damn day you are. For hours you are. You've got to get a muscle for that struggle, everybody. As soon as you develop the muscle for struggle and adaptation, now you know you're on your way to being the best. If you have a great muscle for perfection and things working out, you ain't getting anywhere. You're getting to where you already are. You're already perfect. You're already comfortable. I'm talking about going to another place where there's adaptation kicks in for you. That's what I want for you.
That struggle to transformation.
Yep.
You need it. And we're in this world where it's this need for instant gratification, right? Whether you're, it's to combat becoming overweight or losing the weight, all of these things take time for that to happen. Like I can eat the donut today. I don't get fat today. I can eat the donut tomorrow, no problem. But in 20 years of eating the donuts, I'm very large, right? Yep. And the other way, if you have too much weight, then it's not, hey, I worked out once, woohoo, let's have a parade. You have to maintain that consistency.
That's right. That's right.
In line. I mean, it could be, their declaration could be as simple as, I just want to lose weight.
Yep.
20 years, what does that look like?
Yep. Right? Yeah, I think a good one always, I love this declaration. So you're going to be here for 20 years. We've already agreed on that, right?
Yep.
So if I'm going to be close to 80 in 20 years, why don't I be the healthiest 80-year-old there's ever been on the planet? Because you've got the runway to get there. You've got the years. We have the science and technology. We know what to eat and what not to eat. We know how to train and how not to train. That's totally doable for every one of us on this call, if we so choose it. I think just knowing that, I love knowing that things are accessible to me, because the rest of our society, including ESPN and the media, the publishing world, education world, Washington, D.C., they're always promoting that it's not your fault, that you're not responsible for being 300 pounds. That's just your genes, or you're not, it's not your fault you don't have a gold medal. Yeah, actually it is. Actually, what if it is? What if you're responsible for the gold medals in your life, and you're also responsible for the bronze medals in your life? So what if you're responsible for all of it? You can take control of your life, which is what I like. I don't like other people deciding Bo's success, I don't like that. I don't want to be voted on. That's why I think all these goofy shows they have on TV where the panel votes whether you're the best dancer or the best singer, and they're going to make you a star based on what they think. I don't do that. I think that's really skewed the culture. I choose myself. And then the panel eventually catches up and says, yeah, you're the best. You know what I mean? I'm not waiting for some girl or some guy, Simon Cowell, to say I'm the best talented American. I'm not waiting for that.
Yeah.
I'm doing it myself.
So you set these impossible goals, right? What society would say are these impossible goals. What rituals do you set in place to reach those crazy, impossible that your mom's friends would have said, Bo's never gonna.
Yeah, all my rituals they're pretty basic, but they're unreasonable also. Like I was woken up every morning by being told I was the best. That's how I was woke up every morning of my life. I wake my kids up just like that. So that's the first thing. That's a huge ritual, is to see greatness in other people.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So I start my day by seeing their greatness and then speaking it and waking them up by telling them they're the best. And then eventually my kids will live into being the best, because that's been massaged into their lives just like it was into my life. So if you start your day by speaking to people as if they're the best, guess what they become? The best. And then you're surrounded by the best everywhere you go. That's a huge ritual for me. I also, I start my day with like healthy foods, right? So green juices or a bulletproof coffee, also a workout. So I start the day like healthy, because a good start always leads to a good ending. And so I have rituals like that. So there's always like some kind of, physical fitness worked in there. Also, I'm really involved with my family. Like I'm always integrate. Like we don't separate our family. We don't go, this is our business life, this is our family life. It's all one thing. So our kids are involved in our business, and our business is involved in their school, and there's no separation between their sports and our business. It's all one thing. It's all fighting to be the best at whatever we're doing. I think that's a great ritual that gives me a lot of health. And then, I'm always writing. So every time I'm working out, I'm not literally writing, but in my mind, I'm coming up with concepts and ideas and stories for a play or for a movie or for the next speech that I'm going to give or the next book I'm going to write. And then I use these pieces of paper, these big giant sticky notes that are up in our gym. So when in the middle of me working out, I just run over and start writing on the walls. And then some of that will end up being trash, but a lot of that is my next book or my next play or the next movie or the next word that I want or concept I want to say in a speech. You see what I mean? So I'm constantly being open to the things that hit me when you least expect it, like being in the shower, or usually happens to me when I'm working out, like running or on a stationary bike or just working out. I just hit this freedom place where all these ideas come to me, and some of the ideas are really stupid, that are never going to come to life. But some of them you go, whoa, that's really cool. I'm going to make that come to life.
Even in that, you have to be able to accept that you're going to write some bullshit down, and it doesn't matter. Who cares? But we're going to, people are so afraid of failure, they don't even want to have a bad idea.
Yep.
They don't want to write it down because somebody's going to make fun of them or whatever. And it's caring about what other people think is like the bane of our existence. And here we are on Facebook begging for people to like us, right?
Yeah.
It's this opposite thinking.
Yeah.
It's remarkable.
It's so true. Here's the thing. When you make it your declaration, a lot of people are going to extricate themselves from you. Not everybody, but there will be some. Because it's tough, when somebody declares they want to be the best at something, some people leave your life. But then who surround you is people who think that way too. And the people who think that way, here's what they have in common. They're very wealthy. They're very accomplished. And you know what else? They're very cool. They're cool. Mm-hmm. If I told you the greatest players that I ever played with, guys like Joe Montana, Jerry Rice, Ronnie Lott, Warren Moon, Earl Campbell, these are all Hall of Fame players. These are guys I played with. They are also the coolest players I've ever been around. They're also the coolest players. Not only are they the most accomplished, they think like you and me think. They think like we're talking about today. So therefore, they get paid equivalent to that. You understand? It's very strange what happens to your life once you start to make this declaration and live it into existence. You're now surrounded with people who believe that and think that way also. Therefore, they're fighting for your dreams instead of being naysayers. Those naysayers eventually will leave your existence because they don't really want to be around you. If they're a naysayer and they're in your presence, it's not comfortable for them either. I know you don't like it, but they don't like it either. And eventually they leave. And that's cool. Some of them might even be family members. Some might be friends, but it's okay. They didn't sign up for this. You did. You and me signed up for this. They didn't sign up for it, so don't worry about them.
Yeah. I've noticed as I've become more positive and reading books like this and all the stuff that's out there, you start noticing, the people that you hung out with and the things they say. You're like, wow, oh man, I used to talk like that.
Yeah,
it's just so interesting.
Yeah,
and I know we've kept you. I don't know if we've kept you too long. I don't know how you're doing.
Oh yeah. Oh, wow. We did go a long time. Yeah. Yeah. No, I just have one. I just got to get to football practice for my son.
Okay. Great, man. Priorities, right?
Oh, it's just, here's my favorite thing, you guys. As a parent and as a little kid too, even before I had kids, here's my favorite thing. And this is my favorite thing. It's really the reason why I wrote There's No Plan B for Your A Game. I have been in love with this, I don't know, lack of a better word, development of kids and people. Like to watch them get better. That's always been my favorite thing. Watch them develop, even with small things like brushing your teeth. But as I'm watching my son, he's now 12. He's had this dream since he was 6. Just the development of 6 years of training, not only, nutrition and physical fitness, but he's a quarterback, right? A lot like my brother. And to watch him develop day in and day out. And some days, in fact, every day, watch him go through this same struggle that I'm talking about, where he's almost in tears. And then he figures it out because his body adapts, his brain adapts, and then he improves during that practice. That is my favorite thing, which is why I don't want to miss the practice. To watch him struggle and to watch him develop and work through the struggle. And if you do that for a long enough period of time, guess where he's going to end up in 15, 20, 30 years from today? If he can handle that struggle and have his body adapt to that struggle, it's pretty predictable where he's going to be in 20 years. That's what I love. And that's what I break down in every chapter of the book, which is why I'd love everyone to get it and follow the principles and follow the worksheets and the action steps so that you can do that too. Not only can you do it, but your friends will be able to do it. Your family will be able to do it. And it's just, I think it's the only conversation to be having. So I hope you guys pick it up.
Oh yeah, it's so cool. We will share it with all the groups that we're part of, all our social media. You can get it everywhere, right?
You can get it. You can get it on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, wherever you buy your books. If you do go to boeasonbook.com, there are some cool bonuses on there and some live trainings that I do that you might like. boeasonbook.com if you want those bonuses.
Awesome.
Love. Yeah. And it's on Audible too?
Yeah, it's on Audible. Yep, I did the reading for it. So it's just like this for 260 pages.
And it is really cool because there's that interactive. You at the end of the chapter, it's like, okay, now here's the first challenge.
Yep.
You really say you got to do your declaration.
Yep. Yeah, that part's cool.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, Bo, thank you so much. We really appreciate it. And really appreciate your time.
Yeah, I love being on with you guys. I love the way you guys think and broadcasting this out to the people. And everyone who's watching, everyone who's listening, just watch your community grow. Not necessarily in numbers, but it does grow in numbers too. But watch the quality of the people around you once you start to get this mindset. So thank you guys. Love being here, and we'll talk to you soon.
Awesome. Thank you. See ya.
55% of insurance sales producers say that they have had little or no sales training. Us agents focus on marketing to drive activity and often overlook the sales presentation. Improvements in mindset, shifting focus, rapport, needs diagnosis, value building, creating buy-in, and overcoming objections lead to drastically better closing numbers. The solution? Enroll your team in September's Sales Summit offered by Agency Vault. We will even assess your team to see which of their sales steps need the most improvement. Head to agencyvault.com to sign up before it's full.
Hey, thanks for checking out the Insurance Dudes. Hey, please subscribe. We got some really great stuff coming out.